What's up, everybody? Live from Orlando, Florida, as we get ready for tomorrow night's LSU Florida State kickoff, episode number 2 of the college football tour. And shout out GT Bo 190. Shout out everyone that was hanging out at the tailgate. Man, seriously, before we get started in this game, absolute heck of a time. Had a ton of fun just hanging out and being fun. We are in the hotel room down in Orlando. The flight got in, I would say, an hour ago. Had to Uber to the hotel. I've got DoorDash on the way. But hey, we're here to talk a little bit of, Georgia Tech. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about this game. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your comments. Shout out to C-Dog and Rec Talk did a fantastic job last night with kind of the post-game stream. I wanted to collect the thoughts and not miss my flight from Atlanta to Orlando. And we're here. We're absolutely here. So before we start it off, make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you haven't already, once again, GT 190, Matt Brook, Justin Klingel. It's just a heck of a time. Shout out to Will Manis, another co-host of the podcast, the normal podcast we do. Had a suite, got to hang out with some of the guys in Section 104. But let's talk about this football game. Guys, this one hurt. This one really hurt. And I didn't tweet a lot about this game, but what I did decide to do was watch it. I rewatched it. I'll be honest, I rewatched it on the plane ride, on the flight down to Orlando, and really did. Also, we're going to have to go to a commercial break so I can literally go pick up my DoorDash from the hotel room. Like, we'll kind of see at what it goes. All that to say, I'm looking here, my tweet from last night in the takeaways. I actually tweeted this before they went on the 7-play, 75-yard drive. But this is where we'll go. We had 3 points. We had 3 points here that really kind of hit me. I've seen a lot of takes on Facebook. I've seen a lot of takes on social media, the frustration. Oh, Tech does this to me. They get my hopes up. That second quarter, ladies and gentlemen, was the most exciting quarter of Georgia Tech football we've had in a long time. Haynes King, Chase Lane, Trey Cooley, weapons emerged. And look, I told you, I sat on the show and told you, there's going to be people that say, well, the wide receiver room's not that good. It's just because you don't know. Malik Rutherford, heck of a game. Chase Lane is a legitimate weapon. I walked out of the building and I was talking with Ralph and them and Will and a couple of Austin Bodley, a couple of the guys we were with, and Gavin Hart. I absolutely loved the way this team competed. I like the way that they. I feel like we walked away feeling like this team has an identity offensively. First off, like for the first time in 4 years. Look, they got our things to clean up. We're going to talk about the play calling in the second half, but this is a group that straight up for me, like that was the first signs of life that we've seen out of an offense that could go score, that you didn't have to worry about it. Yeah, the Georgia game, you're able to do some things. North Carolina, it just didn't at times. Like I watched that game, it didn't feel like it was a struggle in that second quarter. And that was one of the best quarters of Georgia Tech football we've seen in a long time. GT Bohunter, you're exactly right there. Eric Singleton is a stud. Like that's going to be a guy that we're going to watch. I'm still excited to kind of see what DJ Moore does. I mean, there's just so many weapons. Trey Cooley, Dante Smith is going to be there for you. Jamal Haynes was kind of used as a gadget. And look, GT Pro Hunter, you just hit it nail on the head right here. And I'm just going to call you Jake because I know who you are. And it's a mouthful to say GT Pro Hunter. He said, we actually have a quarterback for the first time in ever. And look, you've got a guy, and I said this. I was sitting with Matt Brook in the stands. I said, look, you don't need this guy to come out there and be lights out, all ACC type of player. You need him to deliver the ball to the athletes on this offense. And that's what he did in that second quarter. So I want to talk about the first half. Love the way they played the first half. The defense coming up big after the miscue where King was like kind of wrapped up in the sack. It bounces off the helmet. Like for the defense to step up and make a stand was huge. The concerns, and I had them about the linebacker play in the first half. I felt good about it. That's where I felt. Offensive line has got to play better. They've got to give Haynes King more time. You could tell the play calling in the first quarter, in the first half, I should say, was to look, we got to get King outside the pocket. We've got to be able to, move him around and let him do what he does best. I think that I really liked what he saw. Like, I really liked the mentality he had, and then post game for him just to really own up to it. It's fantastic. I think you have your quarterback. Like, you've got a guy that you feel good about. We talk about the second half offensively. We're going to get to defensive. Jordan Williams had to, they had to look at him, and he's banged up. We'll say that. Second half, I think it's on Buster Faulkner. It's on if Faulkner and Winky are calling these plays together. I think that you have to kind of look at the formula here and say, man, you got outcoached. You played not to lose the football game because, look, you had Louisville on the ropes. You had them on the ropes. We were sitting up in watching the game, and when they score the touchdown, it's 28-13. I'm like, look, Louisville's on the ropes. Like, the next possession or two out of halftime is going to determine this football game. And Georgia Tech couldn't capitalize. And it got weird where they didn't know. They didn't really – I don't know whether they didn't know what they wanted to do. The looks weren't there. I think the offensive line was part to blame in that as well. But I think that the play calling got a little timid. It got a little scared, and it was kind of weird. And I agree with you right there, key to success. It's one of those things, and Ralph's not here. He's at a wedding, by the way. It looked like we played not to not lose, not play to win. I agree with you wholeheartedly. You played not to lose. I think that hurt you. And look, when you have a roster that is, if we're just being honest, if we have a roster that believes in themselves, which is kind of what we talked about, like I think Georgia Tech believes in themselves, you really need to keep the foot on the gas pedal. You've really got to be able to you got to be able to do some things to put the nail in the coffin. And I'm going to take a quick break here. We're going to be right back here. Let me pick this food up and just enjoy this ad.
Cook's Place began serving our signature hot dogs in 1985 from a cart on Broadway. We still serve the best hot dogs and scrambled dogs in town at the corner of Moon and Miller Road and at the landings. Our friendly staff won't let you leave hungry. Come in and eat to the beat with our 50s jukebox. Cook's Place, fast service, great people.
All right, I think we're back. Are we back? Can you hear me? It's going to be a little bit of a wonky podcast here, but I think that we're back. Yeah, we're back. That was weird. Didn't like that. All right, anyways. I didn't like the play calling in the first half. I felt like it went against everything that kind of Rinke has preached in the sense of we're going to put our foot on their throats of our opponent and make them wish that essentially, they didn't have to play us. And that's kind of been the mantra. It feels like it's been the mindset. And that was not on display in the second half. Frankly, not on display. Now, look, Haynes King owned up to a lot of this, but I think it's also on the defense. I mean, you had poor tackling from the defensive backs. You lost Miles Brooks in this game. Clayton Powell-Lee, I won't say he had a great game, but I think that he played about average. I think also, Jalen King kind of a little bit hampered, looked like he had a stinger of some sorts, trying to kind of figure out what he, wanted to do. All of this to say is, I think that when you look at what Georgia Tech was able to do in this game, this was my take. In the game, I did not, and you know this, I picked Louisville to win this football game. You can't let, and this is what I think fans are doing, you can't let the in-game changes change your perception from the 30,000-foot view. 30,000-foot view, no one expected Georgia Tech to come in and put up 28 points and be able to have playmakers that look like they are, guys that could play on Sundays. That I didn't expect it. I think that you're lying to yourself if you really, really thought that Chase Lane was going to come out here and be what he was. Maybe Malik Rutherford, but like the way that they utilized him, we didn't really know. All of this to say is, did we really think that Trey Cooley was going to come out there and do what he did? I don't know. So I think that's for me. you can't let the progress made like this game is a tough thing to swallow. It's a tough pill to swallow. You never want to lose the football game, but inside the game, this is going to be a team that I think that is I look at it, you can go on the road and beat Wake Forest. You can beat a Boston College. You can beat a Syracuse. You can beat a Virginia. You can beat a North Carolina potentially. I think North Carolina is still tied 7-7. I got it right here on the TV next to me. I think that's still the score. I don't see you winning. You can beat South Carolina State, Ball State, whoever you're playing, Bowling Green. I don't see you beating Ole Miss, Georgia, or Clemson in this scenario. But now, like after watching this game, because it's not the fact that it wasn't clean, like it wasn't clean for a full 4 quarters. It's the fact that you actually showed something. What we saw in the second quarter from that offense, I don't think, for me personally, I haven't seen that out of this program in 4 years. The way that they were able to move the ball kind of at will. Maybe the North Carolina game back in 2021 in Mercedes-Benz. But the thing is like, look, you lose the game and it hurts, but you got to understand the game within the game. And Jonesy has said this in the Discord. I've said this. Brent Key is trying to build a program. The instant success factor, I don't think was ever going to come in year 1 under Brent Key, but I think that you saw the scheme they want to run. You saw the success that you can have with it. But now you got to figure out the consistency. And that's on the coaching staffs, like we talked about, to be able to have that consistent game plan. But it's also on the players to execute. Going back to what we were talking about before, defensively. We talked about the play calling offensively in the second half, but defensively, poor tackling. And Georgia Tech was getting really beat on the perimeter. And I think Louisville started to notice that. We saw a lot of stretch plays outside the tackles, some zone runs outside the tackles, some quick to intermediate games. And look, I told you guys this. They to me, utilized Jamari Thrash, and it hurt Georgia Tech. They could not tackle him. They could not guard him, and he became unguardable in that second half. And look, you can joke all you want. The kid went to Georgia State. This is a kid who worked his tail off to get where he is, and man, that's a dynamic football player. And you kind of got to tip your cap to that one. Want to make sure we have kind of all the stats. I wasn't typically impressed late in the game with the way the secondary played. I felt like they were kind of gashed. Interesting, in that, but you got to get back healthy. The run game has got to pick up steam and be able to carry this team at times. And Haynes King said that. We didn't run the ball very well in the second half, and that hurts. And I think that's the whole plan of this Georgia Tech offense. You got to run the football to set up the pass, especially what they want to do with kind of some play-action bootlegs, some play-action passes as well. And I'll be honest with you, let's call it for what it is. This is a program that has to learn how to win. You can say what you want, but they've got to learn how to win, which means they got to learn to close out games. They've got to understand what it means to, put your foot on the gas pedal and not lose, to me, not just lose your composure, not blow the lead that they blew in this game. So you got to learn how to win. You got to learn how to win as a program. What does it mean to win at Georgia Tech? Because you haven't done it with any regularity, and you were in a position to do it on Friday night. And I think that when you take a back look at the game, it hurts. But, the comments that get me is, and I think it's just complete ignorance I'll just call it for what it is. I think it's just an ignorance of we'll just call it not knowing ball. You just don't know ball. And I think that's, if you're sitting here saying it's the same old thing, we didn't watch the same football game. Call it for what it is. If you think this is the same thing that's happened over the past 4 years, it's not the same thing. It's a different team, completely different mindset, a team that believes in themselves. And you had issues, but the thing is, these are things that you can clean up on the field. There's no problem within the program. There's no this isn't from top down. This is just you probably got out coached in the second half, and it's a learning, and it's a tough learning thing. Like, Brent Key's a first-time head coach. Like, he's got to learn how to weather a game like that, and it's a learning experience, so that you hope either later on this season or maybe next season you're able to take away from this and say, hey, look, we didn't do this in game one, but now we're up 31-17 against Syracuse, needing this win to get to a bowl game. Now we know how to do this. We know how to correct those mistakes. I think that that's going to happen. Like, I don't think it's far-fetched to say that will happen, that Key will be able to correct those things. But this isn't the same thing. And just blindly putting it out there that, oh, yeah, well, whatever. It's one of those things that, this is just the same old, same old. Tech disappoints me again. Look, it sucks that it happened, but this isn't the same thing. And I will I'll say this. I want to get to this comment because Alex, you hit the nail on the head. Last night was a perfect example of a first-year head coach or super experienced coach. And a lot of you wanted to know why I picked Louisville to win this game. Now, obviously, it's not one of those things that is it didn't play out the way that I thought it would, but that this is an overarching theme. If you believe that Key got out-coached in that second half, which would be weird to me, but if you did, this is why. You can talk about the fact that, maybe Louisville is overrated, but you have an experienced football coach that's coached a lot of football games in that position as a head coach, and he's been in this role before against the guy that doesn't have a ton of experience in that role. It's not knocking Brent Key. It's not saying that he shouldn't be the head coach. It's just a fact of the matter. It's a guy with a resume that with these type of games under his belt as a head coach, and a guy that doesn't have it, just frankly does not have it. And this was a tough learning experience. For those fans. Todd here says, King threw his defense under the bus in the presser. Not smart. I didn't get the feeling of that, like personally, and that's just my opinion, Todd, and I appreciate the comment. I didn't get the feeling that he threw his team under the bus per se. I think that he admitted that the offense was wrong, and then the defense, we just didn't play well as a team. And I'll tell you this, if you have a problem with that, like unless some guy calls out specific players, if you have a problem with your de facto leader, because the quarterback is the leader, a leader of the team, telling the truth, well, that's kind of stuff. If you're getting offended by that, then that's kind of stuff that was under the previous regime. So that's one of those things. Brad, appreciate you, Brad. I think this team has the coaching staff in place so the team will be a different, better team at the end of the season. What decision into the season they are now? I agree. I think, one of those things. Todd, I'll get back to this. He says defense needs to tackle better. Was it wrong? Like, how is it throwing you under the bus if you're saying, hey, we need to play better? Because you know what he said? We didn't play offense well either. If you want to be a championship level team, you've got to have guys that are not afraid to say the elephant and talk about the elephant in the room. What does that even mean? Key isn't calling plays. What decision did Key make that shows him as a first-year head coach? Because everything goes through him. Everything goes through him. I get the love affair for Key. Like, I understand the tech man thing, but you can't, when things go wrong, you can't just say, well, it's not his fault. And when things go right, they are his. It's great for him. You can't just be two-faced like that. We can't just sit here and have it both ways. That's one of those things. Vince, this Key-led team looked way more prepared pre-snap on defense, even if we didn't get a lot of pressure. None of that not getting set stuff. Yeah, I felt like the defense knew what they wanted to do. They just weren't able to. And look, once again, the expectation level that a lot of folks had of what this defensive line could do, doing that is... Sorry, read the comments. I need to finish this one first. The expectation level of that this defense is going to pick up right where they left off in the front seven, like I think that it's one of those things that it wasn't realistic. You just lost a guy that's going to on an NFL roster and is a pretty daggum good football player in Keon White. Expecting these guys in game one to just assume that role, that's I don't know. I don't. Sorry, audio kind of bugged out on us there. I think that's just where it is in that sense. Like you can't look, you can't look at just one specific situation and say, well, that should have been better. I think it's part of the preseason expectations. And now we know it's a group that's going to have to find that guy. Just because Yonju and these other guys have experience, it doesn't mean. I will tell you, I really, really like the job of Eddie Kelly. I think that he's going to be a guy that's going to be really, really relied on in all of this. Dr. Bob here, Bryce, you summed up my thoughts entirely. This game was devastating, but it felt different. We are a different program and take time. Benching Robinson at left-hander showed accountability. It does. There's accountability. It hurt, but you have to be able to admit. And let's kind of wrap it up with this. You have to be able to admit at least the loss felt like a different loss. You didn't feel like wildly overmatched. You didn't feel like the team didn't know what they were doing. There was no just blunder out there that, it just felt like we shouldn't even be in this game. No, like you prove that you can be there. Now, like, folks, we need to understand this. The last 4 years were a wash. I don't really know if you gained anything. In game one, as Brent Key is the head coach, you said, okay, we can compete with a middle tier ACC team, and we can beat them handily. Like, let's be honest, call it for what it was. Take us on their way to beating Louisville handily in this football game. Now you got to clean up the things to gain towards that championship brand of football. That's what you have to do. Lamiles Brooks not playing at the first quarter after the missed field goal really messed us up. I agree. Lamiles Brooks' leadership and what he brings to the table, that really did hurt. Let's go right here, Alex. If he saw Faulkner take his foot off the gas pedal, he should have said something about it. He didn't like it. That's kind of the assumption. It felt like that, but maybe that's part of the, maybe there was some execution, some X's and O's. This group's going to go back and look on film, and it just didn't happen. It just didn't happen for him. I think that's, is what it is. I know we kind of got one of those comments right here. The discipline lack of penalties impressed me. I agree with that. Todd Doe was right, but seeing that defense when he was not perfect, very slow. I mean, yes, Todd, but we got to tell the whole story here. He calls the team. He says, we didn't play well as none of us did. He really didn't. I feel like there isn't a narrative here that Haynes King went into the press conference and said they didn't play well and never mentioned anything about himself. No, he said defensively we didn't do some things, obviously, and then offensively this is X, Y, and Z of what happened. A, B, and C didn't happen here. I think that's what it is. Vince Wilkes, he said in the second half the offense couldn't get loose on the edge, whereas the other team did. Not a big deal. King's dad as a coach looked at the whole game like that. I agree right there. Jonesy here. We will be fine. I'm very encouraged by what I saw. I am too. Like, you don't want to lose a football game, but if you're just looking at the wins and losses of this, well, I'll tell you this. If you watch this sport and all you view are wins and losses and you're not like at the top 15 programs in the country and all you look at is the win and loss at the end of the day to gauge your team and gauge your program, you're gonna hurt sometimes. And you're really going to miss the point sometimes. You're going to miss the point of where the improvement is. And like, I know that's a joke quote that, the previous head coach had, but this is a real thing. Like, this team looked offensively for a quarter and a half way better than they really did ever consistently. And they showed you glimpses of what they can do. And I think that's a good sign. Vince Wilkes, playmakers all over the offense, need some playmakers on the defensive line. And those guys are going to have to, do that. Dr. Bob, my concern going forward is the schedule. Having Clemson, Georgia every year automatically makes a margin of error very thin, but it will track recruits. And look, yeah, I mean, that's what Brent Key's mindset is. I mean, you remember the opening press conference when he talked about that. I mean, he straight up said, look, if you want to, we're going to do that. And look, whether that's attainable in 2, 3, 4, 5, a decade, I don't know. But what I'm going to tell you is that you have to play with the hand you're dealt. And is it a concern? Yeah, because you're consistently going to have one of the hardest schedules in college football. I don't think that there's going to be a season where you're like outside the top 70 of, as long as Clemson and Georgia kind of stay relevant, which it feels like those are programs that will maybe not be at the top, at the tippy top, but they're going to stay within that kind of top 15 to top 25 program every single year. It's going to be really hard for that. I agree. Alex here, you have to hold your teammates accountable as a leader of the team. Appreciate everyone for tuning in. Kind of this episode right here, kind of off the wall episode and kind of crazy, but hey, we're enjoying it. We're going to have fun. I want to wrap it up with this right here. This is kind of the overarching kind of thoughts of the game. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, continue to, get the viewer count up as well. It hurt to lose this way because you had the game, you had it won, and you really were on your way to kind of blowing this team out. And the narrative coming out of this game does not need to be what you see on Facebook and where you see on social media, that being that it's the same old thing. If it is, we didn't watch the same game because this is not even the mindset of the teams are vastly different. Program wise, it's different, and that is so good. It's a complete 180. What you watched is probably what you feel like you should have had in year 2 under Collins. Is you're getting the roster back to where it needs to be, and you see a team that has a lot of pieces, but they've got to learn to play together. They've got to learn to gel, to get the chemistry in a game setting, not just in practice camps and workouts and stuff like that, but in a game setting. And that's going to have its bumps and bruises. It's far from a perfect team, but that's where I sit with this. Like, this team is going to be competitive in about every single football game they play this year. And I told some guys this. I said, look, if they'd have won that game last night, your best case scenario for me goes up to 9-3. I don't think you beat Ole Miss, Clemson, or Georgia, but there's not a game on this schedule anymore. And I'll say this, and you can clip it, you can book it, we can make fun of it, whatever. This is where I said this team. There is not a game on this schedule, in my opinion, outside of those 3 we just mentioned, Ole Miss, Georgia, and Clemson, that you can't go win. That puts you at 8-4. Puts you at 8-4, potentially a 9-win season with a bowl win. That's how impressive yesterday was. And people are going to focus on, well, you lost it, you blew the lead. Yeah, like, I understand that. But that second quarter was the most fun quarter of Georgia Tech football in a long time. And sustained success within a game that we have seen in a long time. That's all I got to say. Hey, once again, shout out to the Tailgate group. Had a ton of fun talking with everyone. It was a lot of fun. We enjoyed it. Man, and stay subscribed to the channel. Like the videos. And we're going to be live next week talking a little bit of South Carolina State, but maybe some things that really kind of key talks about. You got to go dominate that game. You need to go win that game like 44-10. It didn't leave no doubt. It doesn't need to be sluggish. You need to go out and really kind of do that. So I like it. I like the fact, like, I think that Louisville was definitely overrated coming into the season. I think that's okay to say. They're in a very similar situation. They've got some pieces. I think that they're about even. I think that Louisville and Georgia Tech are about even football teams. And I don't know if you walked out of the building. Like, I think Louisville walked out with as many concerns as Georgia Tech did. It's just an easier pill to swallow because you left for the win. And once again, like I said, if you're not a top 25 program and all you're focusing on is wins and losses and you don't look at anything else, you don't watch the games, you just see the box score, that's man, yeah, you're just missing out. You're just missing out. That's all I got for it. We'll wrap it up right here with Jonesy. Prediction for tomorrow night. I've got LSU winning this game 36-27. That's where I'm going. Tigers 36-27. I think LSU, something about it, just talking with some of the players lately, just kind of feels like this offense is going to be ready to explode. Going to be a lot of fun. Make sure you tune in. I'm going to be live in the press box talking about that as well. So we'll catch you next time here. Fantastic episode of Swarm Talk. Once again, continue to get these videos out. We're going to continue pumping out content. Rec Talk, C-Dog, #1 Georgia Tech show on the internet. We'll catch you next time here on Crowded Booth Swarm Talk. See you.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.